All right, here we go. So I understand, Mr. Herskowitz, that you published your book Conceptus last year. Is that correct?
I did at the end of the year and actually revised it a little bit, and it came out again, I think, in February.
Okay. Now, given that you are an author now,
Yeah.
and you have this book out there, what was the inspiration behind wanting to actually start this process in the first place?
Well, it's actually an interesting story. So to answer that, I have to give you a little bit of background on me.
Okay.
First and foremost, I'm a screenwriter, and have written for films and television for many, many years, and have taught film and television writing. And I met a gentleman who worked in a position, I think, in marketing over at Warner Brothers, who wanted to become a producer.
Okay.
And he had an idea for a story that was kind of something that had been ripped from the headlines. And he asked me if I'd be interested in writing it. And I said I would. Now, he wasn't willing to hire me. He just wanted me to write it. And then if he could sell it, he would pay me. And I said, that's fine. But if you can't sell it, I'm going to keep the material.
Okay.
So that's what happened with that initially. And from his idea, I spun it into a murder mystery with a very strong male detective, and added a lot of different elements that were not part of the original story. And literally took 3 different stories that kind of pulled from news articles that I read and mashed those together and came up with the script. So I wrote the screenplay first. And then when COVID hit 2+ years ago, I was sitting around going, well, it doesn't look like films are going to be made for a while. What can I do? And I thought about, well, I want to write another screenplay. And then I didn't have any great ideas for a screenplay. And I thought, I wonder if I could take a screenplay, use it as an outline for a book, and turn the screenplay into a book. And that's exactly what I did. So this is actually, the basis of it was a screenplay.
Nice.
And I hope someday it'll become a screenplay again. I hope someday somebody will go, oh, you know what? That book's pretty good. Let's make it into a movie. And I can say, oh, you don't have to work too hard. Here's a script.
Exactly. That sounds very interesting. Okay. So you mentioned, of course, about your strong female lead that you have.
Yes.
What gave you the inspiration to do the female lead, especially a lead that is LGBTQI?
Yes.
In that community.
Yes. So there were a couple of things. One is, I think that's an underrepresented group, and that
I agree.
That when you have a character who is LGBTQ, there is a tendency for that to be the story. And I didn't want that to be the story. I wanted this to be a person who was good at their job, flawed individual, had issues tied to their past, and they just happened to also be gay. And it wasn't, I didn't want, I wanted to treat it just as if this was any other story. And I don't see that a lot in literature. I don't see it a lot in film and television. What I see is, people that they kind of lean into the idea, oh, this person is a lesbian, or this person is gay, or this person is bi or trans, gender.
Right.
And that was not my focus. I really wanted it to just be, this is a story. And really, for me, the LGBTQ part of it is really a romantic love story. It's not really, that's really what I want it to be, that it's a healthy, natural relationship. The other thing was, and why a female, I had a concept that at the moment feels extremely prescient, and that is, I wanted to kind of delve into the idea of how our life and religion is intruding upon the ability for a woman to choose.
Okay.
And that was something that I wanted to bring out, and of course, I really couldn't do that with a male lead.
Right.
And I can't get without going into spoilers. I can't get too specific about that, but that was one of the things that motivated me. And as we stand at the moment, it's become a little bit more of a talking point in our society at the moment. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I agree. Were there ever moments where you got discouraged during this process of wanting to write this book and ultimately going through the process of writing and editing and then getting it out to the public for people to read?
The third part, getting it out to the public, that's the hardest part. And I think, too, because this is one of the things that helps me get it out to the public. as an independent author, because I don't have a publisher that is a big publisher. I worked with an independent publishing company.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so this was not a self-published book. It was what's called a
Okay.
hybrid published book, which
Okay.
means
Okay.
it's a self-published book where somebody gives you a little bit of help.
Right.
Really, marketing and everything else is up to you. So
Right.
that's a heavy burden for a writer who is not well known. It's not a
I
famous
agree.
so it's an uphill climb.
Mhm.
And I've worked probably spent more money on advertising and marketing than I have, than I'll ever make on the book. But I hope that this won't be the last. I'm actually writing the second book now in the
Okay.
series. And
That's a spoiler right there.
yeah, it is a little bit of a spoiler. I won't go into details, but yeah, and I'm very happy with where it is and how it's going. In terms of the process and going through, actually,
Mhm.
one of the things that I've found as a writer over the years, whether it's in screenwriting or in writing books, is that having a strong, clear outline is a real savior, because when you get to the
Okay.
place where you're stuck as a writer, if you
Right.
have an outline, you go to that moment and go, okay, I just need to go to that next moment.
Right.
And that's
Okay.
already written for me. Now I'm just talking about nuances and details and dialogue and what are the specifics of the moment, but I know what happens moment to moment. So
Okay.
that what was freeing about doing the novel as opposed to the screenplay is
Mhm.
I had the luxury of saying, oh, you know what? I wonder what that character would do or who that person is, rather than it's the guy who stands in the corner and sells newspapers. I could find out about his family and what he thought.
Right. Right. Okay. Now, how did you come up with the title Conceptus? Because that's a real interesting title in itself.
Yeah. Well, so going back to the idea of religion and society kind of clashing a little bit,
Okay.
I went to the parents of this woman who is a police detective. They were very religious.
Okay.
They were Catholic,
Hmm.
and their and Latin is the language of the Catholic Church. So
Okay.
Conceptus means conceiving, giving birth,
Hmm.
and that was where the title came from.
Okay.
And I can
Nice.
tell you that the title of the sequel is Duplicitous.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
trying to keep a little bit of a theme there.
Right.
I gave up on naming each chapter in Latin because I realized that was going to be a little bit hoity-toity for most people. So I
Yeah.
like that, but I am going to keep the idea of the Latin connection.
Now, I do like that because that's one of the things that I actually had to go and do my research on.
I had to,
Was it
got
a
to
lot
look
of
at
the
it.
Latin words that were in there? And I'm like, okay, what does this mean? And I'll go and I'll
Yeah.
look it up. Okay, that makes sense. I understand it now. I get it. So
And did you find that interesting to play with that?
I did. I
Oh,
did.
that's
It
good
was
enough.
very, very clever. I was like, that was interesting. I never would have thought to do something like that. So
Interesting. Well, thank you very much.
no
that was
problem.
good. I had pushback on that, but I also had supporters and pushbacks. I had some people that
Okay.
went, oh, why are you doing, what does this mean? And why is this here? And why did you do? And then there were other people that went, oh, that's really fun. So I had to make a choice between those two polar
Right.
opposites and decided I'll go for it and see what happens. So
Yeah, it's fun. It
well,
gets out. It's a
I'll
smart
confess,
idea.
my Latin is pretty limited. I don't speak a lot of Latin. I took it in
So-
school, actually, but I don't remember.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I can say the farmers in the field. I think it's agriculae and agree, I think, is the farmers in the field. That's about it. So
Well,
other
you
than that,
definitely know.
I'm
You
lost.
definitely know more than I do with that one. So, speaking, of course, of your book, did you receive any encouraging words through this process, or anything that kind of kept you motivated and upbeat to just keep going on days when you felt like, I don't know if I want to continue to do this and write this book?
Again, the writing, the screenplay was more difficult for me than the book, because the screenplay became my life jacket. So anytime I got to a place where I was like, and there were also times where I went, you know what, that worked great in the screenplay, but I don't think I want that in the book.
Okay.
So there are actually, I think there are characters in the original screenplay. I can't remember if I've changed it, because I also went back and changed the screenplay sometimes to match the book.
Okay.
So, but I had main characters that didn't make it to the end that now do,
Really?
and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't really have any big stops on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm going to have more difficulty with the second book because I don't have that source material, so I'm outlining as I go.
Okay.
But it was a fairly smooth process. And again, having that document that I could go to, when I teach screenwriting. I've done that for many years. And one of the things that I teach is when you have an outline, when you do a good outline, I could
Right.
have you an outline and you could go write the same book that I would have written within reason. It wouldn't maybe
Right.
it doesn't have exactly the same dialogue or the
Right.
same, but it's going to be the same story.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, in some ways, although it seems like it would be restrictive, is actually freeing because suddenly you have the ability to take little side trips and know if I get lost, I can always go back. And that really frees up the mind and allows you to kind of dive into the material without worrying about what happens if,
Okay.
what do I do if I get stuck? And I'm a big believer that writer's block to me is just a fear of not knowing what's next.
Mm.
And if you get to a place where you know what's next because you have that outline or you have the information,
Right.
then you take that fear away. And the other things that you can do is then you start to do other kinds of writing to support your story, whether it's writing character bios or writing just brainstorming exercises or going and doing research, getting on the internet and saying, I don't know too much about how it works when a detective does A, B, and C, or how does the CSI when they come in, how do they, work with things. So that's all part and parcel, I think, of avoiding the idea of, oh, I'm stuck, I'm just going to stop, I give up.
Okay. Okay. Now, with you saying that, what is some advice that you would give to aspiring authors who are interested in writing a book or maybe even doing a screenplay, for example? What advice would you have for them?
Probably more than you have time for. I have a lot of advice. One of the biggest things, in my opinion, for any writer is write for yourself first.
Good
then
advice.
Write for an audience second, but don't write with the idea. And actually, I wrote a screenwriting textbook called Process to Product.
Okay.
And the reason that it's called Process to Product is I found in my teaching that there are writers who look at, I'm going to write the biggest, best blockbuster of all time. It's going to make $100 million at the box office. I'm going to get rich and I'm going to retire to the Virgin Islands. And you go, oh, great. How are you going to do that? Because you don't have control. I can't make anyone in America read my book. I can't.
Right. Right.
All you can do is write the best book I can. Hopefully,
Exactly.
he reads it and goes, oh, this is good, and you spread the word. But I don't have control over that. All I have control over is what that character does, what that character says, what the description looks like, what is the atmosphere, and what is the feelings that I'm trying to elicit in the reader.
Right.
If I take care of that, then it's up to whatever deity you pray to. It's up to them. Okay. So my first advice is write for you. Write the story you want to write. Write it the way you want to write it. And then the second thing is keep in mind, are you writing something that if you don't care how many people read it, if you want to do a book about the inner life of a tomato, and there's not a huge audience for the inner life of a tomato, and you're okay with it, fantastic. There are filmmakers who do independent movies that are very small. They do what's called a four-wall, where they rent out a theater. They have people come, and there's one gentleman named Henry Jaglom that's a very famous filmmaker in the independent world. He makes a film a year. All of his friends are big stars. They come in and do the movies, and he does them for virtually no money. He does a four-wall, and he makes a perfectly decent living. But he's not going to be. He's not going to make Marvel money. He's not going to make. He's not going to make the DC kind of films or the X-Men or anything else or Harry Potter.
Right.
So because of that, that's okay for him. That's his focus. That's what he's aiming for.
Okay.
Same thing when you're writing a book or you're writing a screenplay. If you feel like I'm going to write something that's very interpersonal, that it's a very kind of dramatic story, but not a lot happens, that's fine. And it may be a wonderfully written book. You're just going to have a smaller audience, and as long as you accept that.
Okay.
Good luck. That's
some good advice, actually. That's really some good advice to ultimately write for yourself first and then think about the audience and, take it from there and go from there. Yeah, really sound advice. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, good.
With that, thank you. With that being said, you mentioned, of course, that you're working on book number 2.
Yep.
What can you give us, if any, more information than you already have about what we can expect from book number 2?
It's going to be a little bit wider scope.
Okay.
This book, it tackles some kind of interesting issues beyond where we left off in the last book.
Okay.
There are some evil entities that were in the first book that show up in the second book.
Okay.
But there's also Laura Drummond, who is the main character, goes through a little bit of a crisis of conscience about her relationship with her girlfriend and committing to her.
Okay.
And that's going to be the kind of the interpersonal issues that she's dealing with. And also in the city, this is in Columbus, Ohio, and there is an officer shooting a young black man, and there's a real blowback from that as well. And on top of that, there is a serial killer on the loose. So it's a little more complex than the first book. It has it's biting. I hope it's not biting off more than I could chew, but it's biting off quite a bit more and handling and tackling some issues that, I just as an observer have kind of hit me hard as I watch the news and trying to give every story some balance, which is always, I am unabashedly a leftist liberal hippie type guy, so it's hard for me to do that. But sometimes you have to kind of look at things and say it's not just all one-sided. There are to the issue. So and right now it's still I'm still doing it pretty much one-sided.
Okay. Now, do you have an expected release date for it?
I don't. I'm about 100 pages into what I expect to be about a 300-page book. So
nice. Okay.
So I'm into it pretty well. The biggest thing for me is finding time to sit down and actually write, because I do a few other things in my life. So it takes discipline, and it takes time. And I have the discipline. The time I'm having trouble with right now. So when I have a moment, I sit down and I do write. And this is the other piece of advice I give new writers is you as a young writer, it's difficult to understand what your personal rhythm is in writing. Right. And there's some people that sit down and they write for half an hour and I'm exhausted, I'm done. And there's some people that sit down and they write for 72 hours straight and then collapse. And you don't know what your best kind of sweet spot is for writing until you've tried it. And one of the things I recommend is to keep a diary.
Interesting.
Down, how often how much time you sit writing, and also how much time you sit not writing. Because there are times when I can't tell you how many times I've sat in front of a computer going, okay, I'm ready. Let me just check my email. Oh, wait a minute. I got to get a cup of coffee. Wait, before I do that, let me just.
I understand.
I understand. It's 5 o'clock, and you go, well, I'm not going to start now. I got to have dinner. So those are the way that most writers' days go. But if you can start to look at, I really am productive when I have a 2-hour, window. So if I do 10 to noon and take a break and then do 2 to 4, I can get X number of pages done, or I can get this scene done, or this sequence. And that's the other thing I recommend is that you try and keep very simple, clear goals for what you're going to write. So if you're somebody who says, I really want to get 3 pages today, or I want to get 10 pages today, or I want to get a chapter, or I want to get through this scene where this character is at this restaurant and what happens there. Whatever it is that you focus on those, get to that point and give yourself a reward every time you succeed. Because what people don't realize is that, for every person that calls themselves a writer, there are 100 others that are calling themselves that and not doing it. Right. So then you're that one person who's writing. Now you have to find the joy in every step of the way, whether it's I wrote today, I finished something today, I finished a book. And it's all levels. I think of it when I talk about screenwriting, I talk about there's a ladder. And every step of the ladder is a step towards success. And the first step is I have an idea. And the second step is I put the idea down on paper. And the third is I wrote an outline or the story. The fourth is I started the screenplay. The fifth is I finished the screenplay. Then it gets into it's good. Then it's then it's into other people think it's good, and then
Right.
it's into somebody thinks it's so good they want to buy it, and
Mm.
then it's getting made, and then it's made, and then it wins the Academy Award, and that's
Right.
the way. Now you're up the ladder. So those are the
Exactly.
things. But at each step, you have to be good to yourself at some point,
Mm.
and
Okay.
celebrate the little wins.
I agree. I definitely agree because it's definitely a journey when you want to write something and you have this passion for it and you want not only for yourself but for other people to enjoy it as well. So it's
Yeah,
definitely a process. So
it is.
I agree with that. I definitely do. Now I'm going to switch gears a little
Please,
bit and talk about some other stuff with you if you don't mind.
not at all. Go ahead.
Okay, so I read, of course, that you have a production company with your wife
Yep.
called Heart G
Mm-hmm.
Incorporated.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how is it actually working with your wife, working together?
Well, we've worked on a few different projects together.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing we work on is our marriage. That's the main thing.
Right.
She's an actress.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, she's on a series called Dave,
Okay.
which is about a rapper named Little Dicky,
Ah.
who's a comedic light rapper, hysterically funny. If you haven't seen the show, you have to watch it. There's a
Okay.
fabulous new actor, never done a thing before, named Gata, who's a rapper as well. And it's a wonderful show. It's by the same people that did Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld. It's
Okay.
produced by Scooter Braun and Kevin Hart are two of the
Hmm.
producers.
Okay.
So it's
Nice.
a really terrific series. Anyway, that's my wife. The production company was really more about, dealing with taxes and all of that. It was more a
Oh,
corporation.
okay.
But we have produced quite a bit. My wife produced a play that she starred in with Jason Alexander.
Hmm.
I produced a couple of short films that I directed and wrote and produced.
Right.
So we do a little bit of work like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of kind of several different companies that I'm involved with. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, and it is, as we develop projects, that will become the company that produces whatever film or television project we do.
Okay. All right. I also read and saw that you have a podcast that you do
Uh-huh.
called Identity Theft, and it's on Spotify, correct?
But are you talking about Identity Theft? Yeah. So
Yes.
that was a limited series. It was a
Okay.
narrative series, and
Mm-hmm.
interestingly enough,
Mm-hmm.
this was also from a screenplay that I'd written. So
Okay.
what happened was I had a screenplay, and I had somebody come to me and said, "Does anybody have screenplays that would be good for a podcast?" And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe. So I submitted it to this woman. She liked it. We started doing it. I ended up doing the lead voice actor
Hmm.
and also directing several of the episodes. And I thought it turned out fairly well. I did all the editing and sound
Okay.
effects. It's kind of a film noir 50s
Hmm.
detective gumshoe kind of a thing, although it's modern day, but
All right.
it has that feel. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a supernatural story.
Hmm.
It's about a gentleman who is an out of work journalist
Uh,
who his marriage is on the rocks, and he's
okay.
an alcoholic clearly, and he wakes up in an alley one morning and ends up realizing that somehow he has been transported from his body into the body of a mafiosa,
Hmm.
mob boss, and that the mob boss is now with his wife.
Oh.
Now I have to
Okay.
figure out how do I get out of this? What do I do?
Right.
How can I change this and what happened to me? And then it's
Mm-hmm.
a story of his trying to figure out what happened and how do I undo it.
Nice. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, I like
Pretty
it.
cool. Now, of course, I know you said ultimately you're working on your second book right now.
Uh-huh.
And you also mentioned that you have a couple other things that you're working on. Is there anything else that you would like to share that you're currently working on that you would want to plug on this platform to let other people know to look out
How
for
long
you?
is the show? I
As
have
long as you would like it to be.
so I have several different things. I'm producing with a gentleman out of South Carolina a couple of
Okay.
projects that are based on intellectual property, already written books.
Mm-hmm.
One is called Soul Catcher.
Mm.
Soul Catcher is written by Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune.
Okay. Okay.
So pretty big IP. The other one is by a writer named Rex Miller
Mm-hmm.
called Slob. The first one I'm on as a producer. The second one I'm on as a producer, and I co-wrote the screenplay.
Ah,
So
nice.
I'm
Okay.
involved in that. Then I have a couple of my own projects. One I co-wrote with an author from a book called The Empress of Elsewhere, which is
Mm,
a beautiful, if anybody likes young adult fiction or family-friendly fiction, it's a
mm-hmm.
wonderful book. It was a bestseller back in the 80s, I think.
Okay.
And it's about a young girl, a young boy and his sister who meet a young girl who's a bit of a wild child who has a
Mm,
pet monkey.
okay.
And it's about them spending a summer together, bonding over taking care of this pet monkey. And they spin sort of fanciful stories that come to life. And it's really a sweet, very heartfelt story. And hopefully, I'm working on that right now. That's something I hope to direct.
Okay.
I co-wrote it with the author, and we are right now out to financiers to try and get the film funded.
Okay.
And then on the complete opposite spectrum, I have a horror film called She Feeds, which is a creature feature that
Hmm.
is also right now under consideration for funding that I will be directing as well.
Okay.
And I have a third project also starring Jason Alexander, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
called Marty and Vahe Take a Ride, which is none of the above. It's actually a buddy comedy about two guys that run a scam out of a limousine driving
Hmm.
service, and
Okay.
they get into a situation where they scam the wrong person, and now
Uh-oh.
the Russian mob is after them. So
Uh-oh.
you can't go wrong right now with a Russian mob story, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. So
But
I
I'm
have a
doing
couple more. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, that's only a tip of the iceberg. I'm sorry, I got to keep going and say. But
No.
I also am a president of a company called Blockchain Media Concepts, which is a company that uh, is a startup company that promotes
Mm-hmm.
all things blockchain, cryptocurrency,
Hmm.
NFTs, new coins, new tokens.
Okay.
And we have several television shows in development, reality shows, where
Hmm.
we will help
Okay.
promote, a company will come to us and will help promote their product.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm doing a lot of things.
Yes, you are. You are very busy. So again, thank you for doing this interview with
Oh,
me
my pleasure.
because
Help me spread the
so
word. I like it.
thank you. I appreciate that. I have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
And then of course I will let you go. So with that, describe yourself in one word for me. And why would you choose this word?
Interesting. One. I only get one word.
One word.
Boy. Okay. That's hard. That's really difficult. Let me think. I think. I think perseverance is probably the one word that comes to mind. Uh,
Okay.
and the reason is I'm somebody. You probably can't tell. I'm a little bit of an older gentleman. I've been doing this for a long time, and
Mm.
I'm probably at the age where I should be thinking about like a lawn chair and kicking back and retire.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm not ready for that. So I'm also I'm also one of the other things I do in my spare time is I teach martial arts,
Oh, nice. Okay.
and I'm also a martial arts competitor, and I've
Mm.
been doing that
Okay.
for almost 60 years. 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long time. So
Awesome.
I'm actually after this I'm going out to compete in a competition this weekend. So I'm doing that.
Congratulations. Good luck.
I didn't say when, I just said compete, but I continue to do that. And that's just kind of my philosophy on life, that you find your passion, you find your
Hmm.
bliss, and you stick with it, you persevere
Hmm.
through adversity, through the challenges that you face. And we've all had challenges, whether in a
Right.
career or in an athletic career or in an
Hmm.
academic career. There's always those times and those things that put obstacles in your way. And that's actually, that's part of also good writing. The
Mm.
idea and that I have an idea and I have a plan and but never in good writing does the plan go the way you think it's going to go. Somebody put
Right.
something in the path, and now you have to overcome that obstacle. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's the secret to life, that you have to find your way of persevering beyond the obstacles that are put in front of you.
Mm. Good. That's good advice. That's two more questions for you, and then we're done. So where can people connect with you if they want to find out more about your work, what you're doing, purchase your book?
You can purchase the book basically anywhere online that books are sold. The other thing is you can reach me via my website, which is brianherskowitz.com.
Okay.
And I can spell that for you. It's HERSKOWITZ, and it's Brian with an I. And on there are links to both books, both my textbook and also Conceptus.
Okay.
And also you can message me through the website. And I don't always get notifications, but when I do, I respond.
Okay.
And I'm also I'm not hiding, so you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on although I don't do Facebook too much, but on LinkedIn. Right. I'm on right now because I'm promoting the book. I'm on TikTok a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm doing little trying to do little viral videos on TikTok. I've been doing a lot of quick writing tips. So if you're interested in writing tips, you can go and look up my channel on TikTok, and you can find about 30 or 40 little 1-minute writing tips. Okay. And then I also do things that are a little sillier than that. I have a Squidward games meme that I put together where instead of Squid Games, it has Squidward from SpongeBob.
SpongeBob,
so things like that. So I do things like that as well. So you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on any social media platform. LinkedIn is really good. Nice. And then also through my website.
Okay. All right. My last and final question for you, Mr. Herskowitz. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this interview that maybe I didn't touch on within my questions, or that maybe you thought of, or you were speaking to me that you would just like to conclude everything with?
And this is one of the lessons I learned as a writer, a novelist.
Okay.
You can't start soon enough to do your marketing. I was learning actually from TikTok. There's a thing called an ARC reader, and I went, what the heck is an ARC reader? That sounds weird. What does that mean? They're
advanced reader copy.
The ARC, what's going on? And it was that they are the advanced reader copy. You send out so people can read it and give you their thoughts. And I never heard of it, didn't know of it. So I think that it's important that when you write a book, that you have a little bit of foresight in advance to say, okay, I'm going to market it. How am I going to market it? Where am I going to market it?
Right.
What's my budget for marketing? And what are my expectations? If you're looking again, if you're thinking Academy Award, or you're thinking Pulitzer Prize, better pull back a little bit. Just focus on the book and hope that you write something that touches people in a way that okay, yeah, this is something I want to support.
Okay. Well, I thank you again, Mr. Herskowitz, for your time and your energy and your knowledge and wisdom. So this has definitely been a pleasure of mine. Thank you so much. You have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.